everyone. Today I'm sharing with you artist trading card a day every day in June. This is cards 4, 5, and 6. For day 4, which was June 4th, obviously, we're just going to be doing this every day in June. So the days correspond with the number of the card. I wanted to do some illustration. I started out with oh my gosh, my drafting pencil, my graphite drafting pencil. But because I don't have any way of zooming closer with my phone, the way I film these, you couldn't see it when I was drawing it with the pencil. So I just skipped ahead, and this is the part where I'm using my Faber-Castell pit pins, my illustration pins that are permanent. I use a couple different nibs. I'm using the medium and the small to go over the pencil and firm up my illustration and make sure that all the lines are there, all the parts that I want to be there are nice and dark and connected. Some lines are thicker, some lines are thinner. The card is one that was just laying around in my pile of potential ATCs. It has some sort of watercolor already on it, and so I'm just going to stick with those same colors that are on the card, but then intensify them using Dr. P.H. Martin's concentrated watercolor fluid. And I just put some of the scarlet, I think that other one, the blue is the cyan maybe, and then there's a yellow, lemon yellow I think it is, and then a purple. Those 4 colors, I just put a dot of each of those colors onto my very dirty palette that needs to be cleaned up. But when these dry onto the palette, I can just reactivate them with water, so it would be kind of wasteful to wash the palette at this point. So then I'm using a small round watercolor brush and the colors of purple and red. I'm using the purple to add shadows into the red, and then I'm using the red for the main body of the dragon. It's a dragon, in case you couldn't tell. I know it's kind of far away. I need a real camera that I can, do that zoomy thing like other people do. I think it's a remote, and you click it and it zooms in. That's what I need, but my setup is in 2 different rooms, and anyway, it's a long story. But someday I'll, when I actually make money doing YouTube, if I ever do, I'll get a different camera setup, and I'm planning on rearranging my studio too and moving it into a different room. So someday. But for now, it's kind of far away, but you can still see what I'm doing. I'm watercoloring with a small brush, using the purple as the shady color, and then the red, and then a more diluted form of the red to make it lighter. That's kind of what you do with watercolors. If you want it to be a lighter color, you just basically put more water with it. So that's what I'm doing, trying to make his scales or her scales stand out. She has big ears and horns. The inspiration for the illustration I got from Pinterest, so you can see that my iPad mini is standing up there, and I was looking at the drawing that, I can't tell you who made it, but it was pinned on Pinterest, just to give me an inspiration for the picture. I didn't draw it completely from memory. I don't think I can draw a dragon from memory. A lot of times I do, but a dragon is a complicated thing. So, and I don't know why. I was reading a fantasy book and there was a dragon, and I just felt like drawing a dragon. So then to brighten up some of the highlight areas, I'm using the yellow watercolor, mixing that in a little bit. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it does up close. These are very, very concentrated watercolors. They're intense. So then I get out my white Posca pen, and I'm going to use it as kind of it would be kind of like a gouache, a diluted, more opaque white, but it's not really a watercolor. I think it's more, I don't know. Anyway, I just tap it down onto my palette a little bit until there's a puddle, and then use the round watercolor brush in the water to pick it up and dilute it a little bit and spread it around so that it's not like a harsh line. If I had used the pen directly, it would just be lines, you know, there would be lines the size of the pen of the nib of the pen, whereas this way I can just use it kind of like a highlight. And it behaves a little bit like a opaque watercolor, which would be what a gouache is, because I can make it thicker and thinner. It's a fluid, so I can make it thicker and thinner. So it's not exactly behaving like thick acrylic paint. I don't know what. Anyway, it's a thing you can do. I'll just tell you that. It's a thing you can do with your Posca pens. Then I just bring in that silver pen. That's a Sharpie water-based marker to give her a silver eye. And then once everything's dry, I dry it with my heat tool. And then once everything's dry, I bring back in my illustration pens again and go back over some of the lines that got obliterated mostly by the white pen because it's opaque. So just darken them up, thicken them up in some places just to make it back to its illustration form. I use the brush pen from the illustration set to go around the edges to make the edges black. And then I went to my computer and printed out a saying. I'm not sure if it's exactly the saying that I've seen before, but I always think it's funny every time I see it. I don't know where I saw it originally. Something about not bothering the dragon because thou art crunchy and good with ketchup. So I think that's funny and true. If there really was a dragon, we would probably be snacks. So that amuses me. So then with those little pieces of paper, I just opened up my glue stick and drag them across the top, holding them down with my finger to get glue on the back. Works pretty good. And then stick them to the card and add a little bit of a line with the extra fine marker on the bottom and one side to kind of give a shadow underneath. So that's day 4. Yeah. Day 5. I decided to use some stuff. This is all stuff from Happy Mail, and most of it's from a long time ago because I first started putting all the little bits and bobs that I got in you know, like extras from when you're doing a swap, or like I did a tag swap for a couple years, and every month I would get extra stuff in the tag, you know, with the tag. I'd get the person's tag and then they always put extra stuff. So it's not exactly Happy Mail as in it wasn't sent to me randomly, but it's things that I collected, and I was putting them in this box. And then since I've been doing YouTube, I've gotten really large boxes of Happy Mail, lots more stuff that people have sent me. So this little box no longer contains the amount of stuff that I have to use from Happy Mail. So all that being said, I don't know if that was beside the point. I decided to use some things in this box to do kind of a collage type situation on this card. My day 4 card, I knew that I need to put 3 ATCs in within 20 minutes. My day 4 card was long because of the illustration, so I wanted to do something quicker. And I found these little pieces of paper that are painty paper that someone must have had strips, and they cut them and then they rounded them on the corners and put them in this little plastic bag. I have no idea. I'm sorry. If you recognize those little pieces of paper as something you sent me, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are at this point. But I put them on there in kind of a staggered way, trimming off the edges, and they reminded me of bricks, like bricks that have been painted and then cleaned and the paint has peeled off and it's some more colorful And I'm thinking, this is really cool. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to put over the top of it. And I cut a lot of this out. I just am looking through things, I'm taking out things, laying things on top, putting them back in. Um, I spent a lot of time messing around, looking for what I wanted. And I really liked this little stack of cups, but I thought they didn't stand out enough on the background. And I was still thinking about brick and what does brick have to do with cups? And I had this fleur-de-lis, which is a punch of like probably somebody's underpaper. And the bricks and the fleur-de-lis reminded me of New Orleans and the French Quarter because there's a lot of brick architecture in New Orleans. I was there once for one day and we went to the French Quarter and it was a very unique and interesting place. And recently one of my family members went there and was telling me about it and I saw some photos. So it's kind of on my mind just because it's cool. So I decided to use the fleur-de-lis over the brick background, and then there's some of these little half pearl stick-on pearls that reminded me of Mardi Gras beads. When they have the parade on Fat Tuesday, they have these plastic beads that they throw, and you can you can get them if you lift up your shirt. I know that, but yeah. So anyway, they reminded me of the beads, and so I decided to add them as an accent to my card. So I put 3 little beads onto the fleur-de-lis just down at the bottom. I had one that kept trying to escape and I kept trying to put it back on. Anyway, yeah, it went on and on. So I'm using my gray brush marker from the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pens to add shadows. And I did that around the bricks in the background, and then I did it around the entire fleur-de-lis, and it really added a lot of depth. It didn't look so stuck on, like I've glued some stuff on there, which obviously I have. So then I decided that the fleur-de-lis had a little bit of silver paint on it, and I decided I wanted to highlight that. So I got out some of my silver PBO paint and a fan brush and just like kind of went around the edges and just brushed on streaky little bits of silver as if it had like maybe peeled off or something and was showing the other colors in the background. And then I also did a little bit of silver splatter as well. And I used a tube and just like put a couple marks on there with a round tube using that silver paint as well. And it still needed something. So I thought, what if I put, so that you really know that it's the French Quarter from New Orleans, what if I put a street sign? And so I printed out a couple pictures from the internet of the street signs, and I really liked this one that was an actual picture of a street sign from Bourbon Street and the intersection of Domain. And I wanted to use it, but it was too big. It took up too much space and covered too much. Yeah, I liked it, but I couldn't use it. So I ended up using it on a second card. So for day 5, you're getting a bonus card because I ended up using it on a different card. And I don't show you the whole thing, but anyway, so I had printed out this other small, it says New Orleans on it. It says New Orleans and then French Quarter on it. So I put that on with some glitter Mod Podge, and it's very glittery, but it's hard to see in the video. And then I put my street sign on this other card that was laying around with some coffee staining and a couple pieces of very weathered dictionary page. And then I end up finishing that one later. But that's the finish for day 5. And then I end up finishing this other card. And I didn't film it all, but I did put some music on there with this napkin that I've had laying around that I used. I think I used it on a different card already once, this challenge. It's music notes. And I put another fleur-de-lis on there, and some different mark making. And anyway, you'll see a picture of it at the end. I don't show all of the doing of it. So yeah, that was playing with my box of things that people have sent me to make a collage. It's kind of fun. If you've been enjoying this video, please remember to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment so that I know that you were here, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course turn on that notification thing because that's the thing now. Okay, there's the bonus card that I finished. Some more of those little pearls and stuff on there. So day 6. Day 6, I decided I wanted to play with texture and stencils. So I'm getting out some of my 6x6 stencils. That Harlequin one is probably my favorite stencil of all time. And then I have this new stencil that is from the Crafter's Workshop that has kind of some writing from like maybe an old ledger or something on it, which I thought was kind of cool. I started with that one. As you can see, it's brand new, doesn't have any paint on it. We're going to get rid of that whole brand new looking bit right now. So I'm using some dioxazine purple from DecoArt media line just to add my first layer, and then I go to clean it off and it doesn't all come off. But anyway, yeah, no big deal. Then I got out some golden molding paste. This is a paste that when it dries it gives a raised texture on your surface. I probably should mention that this is 140-pound watercolor paper cold press that I've cut into 3.5 inches by 2.5 inches, or if you're doing centimeters, that's approximately 9 centimeters by 6.5 centimeters. So then I have another stencil, and I put some other marks using the molding paste. So now I have a lot of raised stuff on the card, and I'm going to give that a really good dry before I move on to anything else, because if you don't, then it's just mushy and it'll just come right off when you try to put something wet over the top of it. So I didn't give this card any coat of gesso before I began, and I wanted to kind of seal it up a little bit, so I used my 2-inch brayer to go over it with a little bit of white gesso and then dried that on there. Then now I'm getting out some golden high flow. These are very fluid but also very pigmented acrylic paints. Like, they're not thin. You'd think with that much fluid they would be kind of weak, but they're not. They're very intense, as you can see. I put like one little drop and it's like almost black with the purple. So then I'm of course using water and a spray bottle and diluting the paint out that way so that it will drip and combine with each other, like you do. It's fun. And it also, because it's so fluid, it puddles down in between the texture and brings the texture out. And that's the reason that I'm doing it, is so that you can see the texture that I've added to the project where you maybe wouldn't otherwise. So I have 2 of these fine liner bottles that have some of that fluid acrylic in them. One's white and one's black, and I'm using them. I get a little bit more precision because these are very tiny gauge little needle applicators, and I can put the color exactly where I want. And then again, just blending it with water, and these are working pretty well. They haven't clogged up because they have that pin in the cap that goes down in there. I will link them in the description box below so that you can find them if you want them. Then with the white one, I wanted to make some bigger spots, and then of course I'm adding it a little bit around the texture too. You get different splatter depending on what application you use. If you use a fan brush, it's very fine. If you use a little round paintbrush that's wet, it's a little bit thicker, and then if you use this fine tip applicator, you get pretty big splotches. So that's what I was trying out. Once I gave that a good dry with my heat tool, then I got out some Stickles glitter because I think glitter and sparkles and shimmer and shine are awesome. So I'm applying that in different areas and blending it with my finger a little bit to make it thinner so that it dries fast. And it is the iridescent, I think it's diamond diamond or something like that. It's like iridescent glitter glue. Then to finish off this card, I get out a rub-on. You don't see rub-on so much anymore, but it's like a kind of a thin, sticky thing that is on some acetate, and then you put it on your project by pressing it down and then rubbing it really hard with the stick that comes with it so that it presses on there and it separates itself from the acetate and becomes on your project. And I put the word joy. Then I used a black ink pad to go around the edges and a little bit of white Posca pen to add a highlight, or a drop shadow actually, but it's white, to the edges, and that's it. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.